You did a really good job of getting Mr. Moore to do the phone interview, but we may encounter another hurdle when we go to do the home visit. You told me Mr. Moore's son goes through the mail. Chances are he lives with his son, who may be what we call a gatekeeper. He may try to prevent his father from participating further if he thinks it may harm him in any way. I have 2 interviews scheduled this afternoon, each with a different type of potential gatekeeper. Since the next step in your training involves coming along on a field visit, why don't you come along on these?
Sure.
The first visit is with Grace Thompson. She lives at home with her husband. The second is with Joe Mann. He lives in a nursing home.
It's important to look professional on field visits. Wear a picture ID and bring along the introductory letter and other project materials in case a respondent wants more details on the study.
Well, hello.
Hello, Mrs. Thompson. I'm Catherine Wilson, and this is John Rose.
Oh, please, come in.
Thank you.
Would you like some coffee and cake?
Sure.
Thank you, Mrs. Thompson.
Oh, please, call me Grace.
Thank you, Grace, but I think we'd better get started. Is there a place that we can sit that is private and where you'll be comfortable? If possible, I'd like a table to write on.
Oh, sure, we can go into the living room. My husband's in there reading the newspaper, but he said he was going out to the garage to do some work. He's trying to organize his workshop.
A woodworking shop?
Why, yes.
Well, isn't that a coincidence? You know, I do a lot of woodworking myself.
Honey, this is Catherine Wilson and John Rose, the people who are going to interview me. Oh, this is my husband, Jerry.
How do you do?
Mr. Thompson.
How do you do? So, you're going to be asking Grace some questions, huh?
Yes, Mr. Thompson. It's for a study being sponsored by the National Institutes of Health. It's on the healthcare needs of older people.
Well, what kind of questions are you going to be asking?
Questions about her health and the types of healthcare services she uses.
How do we know the answers aren't going to go to someone like, well, our insurance company?
Your wife's responses will be completely confidential. Her name will never appear in connection with her answers. The interview will be assigned an ID number, and her personal information will only be seen by our project staff, who have taken an oath of confidentiality. Here are some materials about the study, including the project summary. This will give you a better idea of how the information we get from your wife will be used to make important decisions about health care.
Well, okay, but, you know, she tires easily.
Oh, Jerry, please.
Mr. Thompson, I completely understand your concern, and I promise we'll take a break if your wife gets tired. And if she can't finish today, we'll come back later in the week.
Now, dear, why don't you get started on your garage project?
Well, all right, but I'll be out there if you need me.
Why don't you sit down? John?
Now, Mrs. Thompson, Grace, I'm going to ask you some questions, but first I need you to sign an informed consent form, which says that I've explained the study to you, that you understand what is being asked of you, and that you agree to participate.
Oh, dear.
By signing this form, I am not waiving any of my legal rights. I have been given a copy of this form. Now, do you understand everything that I've read?
Yes?
Participating in the study is your decision. It's really up to you. Even after you sign the consent form, you can stop the interview at any time, or you can refuse to answer any questions that you're not comfortable with.
Well, okay, that sounds all right.
First, I'm going to ask you some multiple choice questions about your health. This means that you'll have a choice of 3 answers. I want you to select the answer that best describes how you feel. Please stop me if you have any questions or if you don't understand what's being asked. Are you ready to begin?
Yes.
Compared to 12 months ago, is your health better now, the same, or worse now?
Well, it's been up and down. It's hard to say. My blood pressure is more under control, but my arthritis is worse.
Oh, that's too bad.
I know it's difficult to choose one answer that describes exactly how you feel, and I'm sorry to have to keep repeating the question, but taking what you just said into consideration, would you say that compared to 12 months ago, your health is better now, the same, or worse now?
Well, I guess it's about the same.
Okay.
Don't forget you had bronchitis this year, Grace.
Well, that's true.
Grace, I know Jerry's trying to help, but it's your opinion that we need. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just your best estimate of how you feel.
She just doesn't remember these things.
Mr. Thompson, I really appreciate your willingness to help your wife remember, but it's her opinion we need, without any coaching.
Okay.
I'm so sorry, dear. He just feels left out is all.
That's quite all right, but is there some other room where we wouldn't be interrupted?
I think I hear him working. I don't think he'll bother us again.
Boy, was he persistent. He wouldn't leave her alone.
If there had been one more interruption, I was going to suggest that we reschedule the interview for another time, but luckily he did stay in the garage.
I guess you have to be ready to do that if someone's not getting the message, huh?
Exactly, but you have to be as tactful as you can with a gatekeeper. As you saw, I tried to reassure Jerry about the legitimacy and the confidentiality of the study by giving him the materials and answering his questions. And I also assured him that we would take a break if Grace felt tired. You have to respect gatekeepers' concerns and address them.
Well, luckily he got the message.
Now that you understand about gatekeepers, let's talk about the rest of the visit.
Well, hello.
When Grace opened the door, we introduced ourselves and showed our ID badges. She invited us in. That was fine. Then what happened?
Would you like some coffee and cake?
Sure. I was hungry.
Some older people look at any kind of visit as a social event. We were company to her. She wanted to entertain us. But you have to stay focused on the interview in a professional and neutral way. Once you start interacting socially, you could bias a respondent.
I see. Is that why you gave me that look when I started to talk about woodworking?
Yes. For the same reasons, it's best not to share personal information with the respondent.
I remember that from the training session. Okay.
Remember when Grace couldn't decide how her health was now compared to last year?
It's hard to say. My blood pressure is more under control, but my arthritis is worse.
You said.
Oh, that's too bad.
A remark like that can influence someone's responses. If Grace didn't want you feeling sorry for her, she might have lied about how she was really feeling. It's tough sometimes, but you have to remain completely objective and uninvolved.
Boy, there's a lot to think about. You can't just be yourself.
Right. You have to be a professional.
When conducting a field visit, remember the following points. Explain what space you need to comfortably conduct the interview. Try to minimize distractions. Avoid social interactions. Ensure privacy for the interview, and reschedule the visit if it becomes necessary. When dealing with gatekeepers such as Mr. Thompson, remember to respect their concerns. Answer all their questions. Emphasize the confidentiality of answers. And if needed, thank them for their help, but say that it is important to obtain information and opinions directly from the respondent. When conducting interviews, go over the consent form in detail. Offer to stop the interview at any time. Explain how to answer the questions. When repeating a question, read it exactly the same each time. Allow sufficient time for the respondent to answer, and clarify or probe any unclear responses. Many of the lessons John is learning can be applied to any age group, such as staying focused on the interview and remaining objective. However, some situations are more common with older adults and require special skills.
I wanted to ask you about a call I made this morning. I was trying to reach a respondent, and I got a young woman. And she said that the respondent wasn't there. But when I asked if there was a time I could call back, she became very vague and nervous. Something seemed very strange. Should I just keep trying?
Actually, that sounds similar to an experience I had where it turned out the respondent, Mrs. Rodriguez, had just died.
Wow.
I called several times and kept getting the same man who was evasive about when I could call back. I suspected that the respondent might have died, so I tried to confirm this as gently as I